Happy Monday. Welcome to it. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. I did. I did a little bit of work, a little bit of play, and recharged back for another fantastic week here in the booth. Welcome. My name is Mike Hathcote. I'm a full-time voice actor. Been doing so since way back in the 1900s. And this is our daily voiceover chat where we hop on here real quick and just give you a little bite-sized nugget to get you down the road in your voiceover career. Don't forget to chime in on the chat. I'm going to do some shout outs. Maybe just tell me where you're watching or listening from. And also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and the not the Facebook, the notification bell. And what was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, do that, please. I'd appreciate it. All right, let's talk about your mic proximity or your microphone, and more specifically, the proximity of your mic. Um, when I work with a lot of brand new talent, either in a demo situation or just performance coaching, I notice the way that they have their microphones placed is incorrect, and this will not only hurt your demo if you're producing a demo, but just, your day in and day out recordings. In fact, I'm remembering just recently I worked with a client on a demo, and we could not figure out why his recordings were coming in sounding so weird. And whenever I was meeting with him on Zoom, the microphone was just out of frame, so I couldn't see where his microphone was. And it turned out it was because he was too far from the microphone. We actually had Alex DeWeese, who is one of our engineers in the voiceover blueprint, uh, do a little investigating to figure out what the problem was. And sure enough, that's what it was. He was too far from his microphone. So I wanted to kind of go into that a little bit today and give you some tips on where you should be in relationship to your microphone. Okay. So the microphone that I have here is a shotgun mic, and we touched a little bit on this before, but there's a couple of different kinds of mics that you may or may not be using in voiceover, and that is either a shotgun mic like this or a condenser microphone like this. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but depending on which kind of microphone you have, you need to make sure that your placement of that microphone is where it should be. Okay. So a lot of people have seen people do this. This is how far you should be from your microphone, right? That's true. So this is called the shaka, by the way. Anyway, a lot of people will do this and go, okay, I'm good. They kind of figure out, okay, this is how far from the microphone I need to be. I'm good. That's only part of the battle. Okay. That's about 6 inches for most people, give or take. That's just a good kind of, rule of thumb there. Rule of thumb, get it? Sorry. Um, anyway, that's just part of it. That 6 inches is true, but it's not from the end of the microphone. It's from the actual diaphragm inside the microphone. Okay? So a lot of people will think that, as long as they're that far away from the pop filter or from the edge of the microphone, that's okay. But we need to make sure that we're that far away from the diaphragm inside that microphone, which it's a little bit easier to see if you have this kind of a mic. If you kind of hold it up to the light, you can see that little round diaphragm that's kind of in there. Um, and that is how far you need to be from the inside of that mic, not the grill, not the metal grill here, but the actual diaphragm, which is pretty much right here in this line in the middle of the mic. Okay. So that far away from the diaphragm in the middle of the mic. And that's only part of it. Next thing is, at what angle does that microphone need to be? A lot of people think when they first start recording that they should talk directly into the microphone like this. So the microphone's right here, they're talking right into it. Not the case. You want to make sure that your microphone is offset or off kilter or like at a 45-degree angle, kind of diagonal to you. So basically, you're talking past the mic. You're not talking directly into the microphone. If you talk directly into the microphone, it's going to cause a lot of plosives, which is that pop, that P sound, which is partially what that pop filter is for, but it's gonna help it so much more if you're talking past the microphone instead of directly into it. So, some people will have their microphone hanging like this, some people will have it up like this, that's okay, as long as you're talking past it and not directly into it. So, this microphone that I've got is, like I said, it's a shotgun mic, so I've got it kind of up and pointing down at me, and that, I for my regular recordings, I bring it in a little closer because I want that 6 inches, you know, from the diaphragm. Um, but the cool thing about a shotgun mic is it's a directional sound, which means it only picks up kind of what's in front of it. So, it's really forgiving if you have maybe a less than perfect space. It's gonna not pick up a lot of that extraneous noise that's around. It's only gonna pick up what's directly in front of it. So I have it pointed right down at my mic or at my mouth, and I'll bring it in a little closer when I'm recording, but that's where you wanna have it. So whether you have an arm like this that's holding it up, or you have a stand and maybe you've got a microphone like this, just make sure that you are talking past it. It's pointed at you at about a 45-degree angle, and you're not talking directly into it. Okay? So that is your microphone proximity. It can be a little bit confusing, but just remember, don't talk directly into it, this far away from the diaphragm. Okay? All right. Let me know if you have any questions on that. I know that can be a little weird for a lot of people who are just getting started. All right, let's check in and see who's here today. There's Sirius, first in. Hello from Charlotte. There's Nephi from Knoxville. There's Carmen from Gainesville. Edward from Jacksonville. A lot of Vills in today. um, Alex from Utah. Emmy Dahl from Phoenix. Jason says, time to sit back in the booth, listen to Mike drop some knowledge. Hello from Kearney, Nebraska. Get it? Mike drop some knowledge. Sorry. It's Monday. I'm still in it. um, there's Sean from Longview. There's Corey J from Whitehall, Wisconsin. There's Sarah from Kentucky. There's Tim from Altoona. There's Nancy from Yankton. Kirk from Greenville. There's Dennis. Hi from LI. I'm sorry, Denise. Sorry, Denise. Dennis and Denise. There's Callie from Pasco. Sandra from London, Ontario. There's John from Denver and another John from ATL. Tracy from Rochester. She says I needed this Monday info kick. Well, I'm glad I could oblige. Rick says, hello from Minneapolis. There's Juan from Ocala. David from Hamilton, Ontario. Joy says, hello, everyone from Southfield, Michigan. Just got home from the hospital yesterday evening with influenza A. So don't be near my mic for probably a week. Wow. Yeah. Take care of yourself. Don't try to jump back too quickly or else that just extends the amount of time that you're sick. I learned that when I had COVID a while back, and just try to do what you can to get better. Andrea says, hello from Florida. Amy Dahl says, quick healing for Joy. Sarah also says, oh no, Joy, hope you're feeling better soon. There's Bob from Wadsworth, Ohio. Johnny says, Johnny from Florida says, I'm trying to figure out the 416 proximity when I'm basically recording with a blanket over my head. Inconsistent results so far, sometimes good. Yeah, this is a 416 as well, and that can be a little tricky, especially if you're just doing the blanket thing. Here's what I would do. Try to figure out a way to make that blanket be static, meaning not moving around. Like if you're just pulling it over your head, that's going to be gonna have a lot of variables with it. Figure out a way, and this is something that I did at my parents' house, an ironing board. Take an ironing board, open it up, and use that as kind of part of the frame or the thing that's holding your blanket up, and then just put your mic in there and leave it in the same place. That hopefully will help kind of, you know, normalize your your mic placement and your proximity so that it's the same every time and it's not you don't have all that variables. There's Wayne from Port Orchard, Washington, and Dave in New Orleans. Dennis from Grand Parkville, or I'm sorry, from Grant Parkville. Grant Park, Illinois. Oh, I see what you did there. I see what you did, Grant. There or Dennis. Very nice. Grant Park, Illinois. Alex says, rule of thumb, never apologize for a bad good pun or good bad pun. David says hi from New Orleans. Callie says that's a really important tip. I've always assumed it meant distance from grill. Yeah, I got that tip from, many of you know who George Whittam is. He's an audio engineer slash booth wizard, and, he told me that years and years ago that the microphone distance is not to the grill, it's to the diaphragm, so keep that in mind. There's JJ from Minnesota. Johnny says, "I have a small frame to hold up the opposite side of the blanket." Okay, good. I mean, really, as long as you keep your microphone stand or arm, whichever you're using, I would imagine that if you're probably in a blanket, you probably don't have an arm yet. But if you're just working on a stand, just make sure that that stand is in the exact same place. Now, when I travel, I do take the 416, but I don't have the arm to travel with. I have a desktop stand, and I just make sure that that microphone, instead of pointing down at me like this, that it's pointing up at me from the desk in the same kind of direction. So as long as it's pointing to me and I'm keeping that distance away from the grill, I'm sorry, from the diaphragm, I'm good. I've recorded, pickups and stuff where I've recorded the original in my booth and then gone on vacation or something and recorded the pickups in a different spot. You can't tell because as long as you have it in the right place and you do have a treated space, shouldn't matter that much. There's Andrew. Good morning, evening from Latvia. How can I increase the volume of recording audio? Well, if you're using an XLR mic, like any decent, mid to upper range level microphone, you should have it going into an interface. And that interface has a gain knob on it. And that gain knob is just a fancy word for, saying microphone volume. And if you just turn up the microphone volume, that's really all you need to do. If you could elaborate on that question, I don't know what else you could do or would do other than getting closer to it. But once again, you don't want to get too close. Keep that 6-inch range. Now, I will give you this. There are times when you need to get a little closer to the microphone. If you're doing like a really warm, sincere, up close and personal kind of read, it's okay to get closer. Just remember, a lot of people think that if you're raising your voice, if you're doing a big yelling kind of over the top read, that you should back away from the microphone. And that is not the case because if you back away, guess what happens? You sound distant, right? So you don't back away from the microphone when you're raising your voice. You just turn your gain down. Okay. So just turn your gain down. Now, on the flip side of that, if you are doing one of those up close and personal kind of reads and you do need to lean in, then you might need to turn your gain up a little bit. So 9 times out of 10, when I'm doing regular reads, I leave my gain in the same spot. But if I'm coming in close or if I'm yelling, I need to adjust it a little bit. So keep that in mind too. Juan says, "First time watching you, since you took over. Thank you for your instructions." My pleasure, Juan. Glad you're here. John good question, John. John says, "Should the pop filter be at a 45-degree angle as well?" Yes, if you do use a pop filter, it should be I mean, it doesn't really need to be at a 45-degree angle, like, perfectly. It just needs to be between you and the microphone, whatever that is. I don't use a pop filter because I use this 416, and it's got this little sock on it, so I could take this off. There we go. So that's the 416, so it's pointing right down at me. I leave this on in lieu of a pop filter, but, and by the way, for those of you who aren't as familiar with a 416 is basically if you see the guys in TV shows and stuff that are holding the boom mic up high and they're pointing it, they've got it just out of frame and they're pointing it down at the person talking, that's usually a 416 that they're using. They are bulletproof microphones. You can beat them, and I mean, I wouldn't suggest that, but you can, they're really, really heavy duty microphones. So, um, but when it comes to the pop filter, just as long as it's between your mouth and the microphone, that's all that matters. Terry says, "Good afternoon from Falston, Maryland." Joy says, "Would I have to keep the mic tilted a little to prevent myself from talking directly into it and thus no plosives?" Yeah, whatever however you need to do it. Like I said, everybody's got a little different situation with their, table and everything. Just make sure that it is, tilted so that you're talking past it. So as you can see here, when I'm reading my script, and by the way, I always suggest don't print your scripts out. Just keep them on your screen. Save some paper. But anyway, whenever I record, I look straight ahead at my screen, my script, and I'm talking past the microphone. So it's down here, I'm talking past it. So whatever you have to do to not talk directly into it like this, even you could probably even hear that difference when I just did that versus, talking straight ahead. Now I'm talking directly into the microphone. I'm sure that probably sounded a little bit different. Andrew says I was recording and the audio sounded low volume. Yeah, just tinker with your gain. Sometimes the gain is on the interface. If you have a USB microphone, sometimes the gain is actually on the microphone itself. So you may have to adjust the gain right there on the microphone. But just play with that and see if you can get a better level of volume. When you're recording into your DAW, your recording software, you should be peaking, meaning the waveform should be peaking as you're talking in your normal speaking voice. It should be peaking in the neighborhood of -9 dB, just at your normal speaking voice. Then, of course, once you do all your processing and stuff and normalize to -3, which is kind of the standard, volume level for a finished piece, that'll be that. But just before you do any processing or anything like that, shoot for the neighborhood of -6 to -9 dB as far as your normal speaking voice goes, and just play with your gain until you get to that level. Edwin says, "Mike dropping that mic smoke because the knowledge is on fire." Thank you, sir. My pleasure, Edwin, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Andrea says, "Does your voice sound better when you're recording in a smaller space?" Um, and she also says, "Does the size of the room really matter?" I guess is what I'm wondering. Not really, as long as it's treated well. Um, my booth in particular, I splurged when I bought this booth. I bought it's 6 by 9. I'm sorry, 6 by 8 foot. So it's 6 feet this way and 8 foot that way. I wanted a lot of space. After being in the closet for years, I wanted a nice big space because being in that little tiny, it was like 3 by 5. It was just, no windows and very cramped. Luckily, I had a really tall ceiling, so that was fun. But I wanted a bigger space, but I just made sure that this space is treated well, so it doesn't matter how big it is. I've seen people who are in actual room like full-size rooms, and they've just treated the walls and stuff so that the audio performance is best for that particular space. I don't know that a very small space is preferable to a large space. I think it really always just depends on the amount of treatment you have in those rooms. One thing I have heard though, I've heard that the shape of the room matters, meaning if it's an a complete square, like a perfect square, that's not as good as something that's more rectangular that has different length versus width. I've heard that that does make a difference, but I'm not an engineer, so I don't wanna go too far into it, but I have heard that. Michael says, "Awesome seeing you today, my friend. This is Michael from the Jersey Shore. Thanks for the great mic info." Well, you're welcome, Michael. Thank you. Andrea says, "Do you mean treated the room with, like, soundboards?" Yes. Well, not soundboards, I mean, just foam, whatever you can do, acoustic panels. Even this logo back here, this right here, this is an acoustic panel. It's not just a piece of cardboard. It's a I actually ordered that from a place called Acoustical Solutions. They will actually print on acoustic panels for you. So, whether you use acoustic panels, studio foam, blankets, whatever to deaden your space, just do that, and the more of that you do, the better, just to deaden that sound. Remember, the deader, the better. That's the that's the catchphrase. The deader, the better. Okay, guys. Well, I got another big fat e-learning this morning that I need to get into. I had a gigantic one last week and then a smaller one, not quite as big, also last week. And then I just got another big one today. So looks like it's e-learning land for me for the next few days. But I also got some medical stuff popping in too. So I'm gonna get busy. So once again, thank you so much for showing up. Like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. Remember, we're trying to motor on up to 100,000 subscribers. So please do that. I appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all tomorrow. All right. Until then, break a lip.